Hello, Culture Matters podcast. This is going to be a fun one. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. You do not like them, so you say, try them, and you may. Try them, and you may, I say. Green eggs and ham, Dr. Seuss. Our guest today is uh, the pundit of Dr. Seuss literature, a stalwart leader, forthright in their. I know they're bold. I know, I've got to memorize it myself. A leader of leaders, a expert at their craft, a mentor, advisor, student for life, regular guest of the Culture Matters podcast. They have books, podcasts you need to follow, and a deep fascination with octopi. I think I said that right. I don't think it's octopus. Chris Vester's back, the Hubert Vester Auto Group. And thanks for coming on today to talk about automotive culture, part two.
Thank you, sir. Sam, I am is the best salesperson on the planet. He just never gave up.
What do you
Well,
think?
it wasn't Sam, because Sam was the one that didn't like the eggs. You know,
Okay.
like green eggs in the ham, Sam I am. So
Yeah.
yeah, but like I actually like I signed that book. I'll say I signed that book as our book of the month one year, one quarter, 1 month, so that we could just dissect the idea of the relentlessness that he exhibited of keep trying to find the right solution to the problem for that customer.
What
So
do you think is meaningful about not giving up as it relates to automotive as a utility, right? It's a product
yep,
for people. Like, why is it important to?
to not give up. Oh man. Um yeah, it's when I think about automobile dealers, car dealers, um, and the adversities and the things that they face and the grit that it takes to overcome some of it. I got asked yesterday, I was in a classroom and and a kid asked me, if you look at the horizon, what do you think some of the biggest issues you see are? And I said, right now it's government regulation, trying to push an agenda of something that customers don't want. So that relentlessness of like just knowing you're going to get kicked in the face a lot from a lot of different directions. I think it's super important. I mean, I think that applies to all entrepreneurs. I think I forgot who it was that said that the number one common denominator among entrepreneurs is grit. Which I can say I relate that to relentlessness, the constant moving forward. But we're a big indicator in the economy and a big indicator of where culture's headed. I mean, there's just so many things that are visible in the automotive spaces as where things could be headed or going, um, which makes us, subject to stumbles fast, I think.
Hmm.
Um, I, so your question was, why is it important? Why is relentlessness important? Um, because it's a challenging space because of all the things that affect it, that never seem to be on the same page at the same time. I mean, it's just you got to constantly be, bobbing and weaving, trying to figure out how to be successful.
Hmm. What about community? What impact does a quality dealership have on a community versus the opposite of that, poor quality?
Yeah.
How could
So,
that negatively impact? I want to see two sides of the.
so I can give you an example of negative impact. We don't. There's a faction of the dealerships that one of the things that they resort to for marketing, um, is an idea of like a direct mailer sale. Um, they've been called a lot of different names, not great names, but one of them is called gypsy sale because this direct marketing company will come in, they'll bring in a team of salespeople, a team of management, and they literally take over a dealership for, let's say, 3 or 4 days or a week or whatever. And it's like this, sell it all at all cost. And they have zero tie to the community. The people that come in, they're just transient. They literally go from town to town to town. Which means I don't know what their culture is, but they don't participate in the culture of the community. And we don't do those. And a big part of the reason I don't do those is because of the after effect of what happens when those people leave. They've made promises they can't make good on. They've oversold product, lied about. I mean, it's just gross. And I've seen dealerships that do that, and I've seen how hard it is for them to gain any type of internal culture because, 2 or 3, 4 times a year, they're bringing in an outside culture for the immediate effect of dollars. But that 4 times a year tearing down of culture, like I don't know how you can grow from that. I mean, you get an injection of cash, but that's all you get. And then you got the flip side of it where over the course of time, people know that if you show up in the community in the right way in times of need, as much as anything, then they begin to see you as a participant in the community, as a healer in the community, as part of the glue of a community. So I think given a right culture, I mean, one of the things that we say what sets us apart is the way we serve with our feet and hands. We are looking for opportunities to serve when it comes to, not-for-profit organizations that we care about, the school system that we care about, that's raising the next generation of employees and leaders in the community. But if you show up consistently enough in the right way, then you become seen as part of the glue of that community. So yeah, it's like I've seen both sides of it. And I've seen how it hinders when people rely on the quick injection of cash rather than the steady building of a community member, the business as a community member.
Hmm. How has the family served the community over the years?
So some of our bigger initiatives, some of them are just based on our family history. Like my dad and I served as co-chairs one year. My dad has served on multiple years as the chair of the Heart Association here in Wilson County and participating in the Heart Walk, raising funds for the Heart Association because those funds stay inside the community where they're raised. But that's based on the fact that we've got family history of heart disease. My dad and I both are cancer survivors. We've done stuff where we raise money for the Walk for Life. We became aware about 12 years ago that there was a need of school supplies in the community, which I think everybody kind of takes that for granted. The ability to have a backpack and some pencils and paper and highlighters and things like that when it's just time to go back to school. But in our community in Wilson, just the county of Wilson, there's a need for 3,000 backpacks full of school supplies because those kids can't afford them to go back to school. And every year we've just done a little bit more and a little bit more. And last year there was 1,070 backpacks that we supplied just from our company alone. So that's a big drive for us.
Wow.
I would love for us to hit all of them. I'd love for us to be the sole supplier. That would be amazing. But that's a big thing in June. Our first responders here in this community are like amazing people. So we do like a hometown heroes event in July where we give them tickets to a local event that we sponsor. We feed them that day. We do hot dogs, hamburgers, invite all the local police department, the sheriff's department, the highway patrol, the 911 operators, the EMT, the fire department, like everybody, just to say thank you. Because in this town, even just in this town, the city of Wilson, the Wilson Police Department puts on athletic camps where they pair policemen with 10 to 12 kids, whether it's football camp or cheerleading camp or soccer camp or baseball camp. And then they track the crime rate. And where the camps have high attendance, the crime rate that month goes down because kids are busy. And now they've got a one-to-one connection with someone who's garnered their respect because they showed them they cared about them. So we pour into, it's called Wilson Pals. It's Police Athletic League. And like knowing that they measure the effect of it, like I want to participate in that. And then just being a destination when it comes time for holidays. We do a big trunk or treat. We had 1,500 kids here on Halloween doing, trunk or treating. Just, costume contest just to pour back in. And then we did, we had a Santa where people could come write a letter to Santa. And then we adopted 3 families in the community where we were their Christmas. And based on what DSS told us was a need in the community. So I mean, we just look for ways. And then we just ask our employees, hey, what's something you care about? And then if there's if there's more than 1 or 2 that have this one particular thing they care about, then we've tried to figure out a way to, hey, how do we pour into that as an employer so that they know that they've got a voice. The employee knows they got a voice.
What do you say to the person that thinks, well, that seems like a lot of wasted time?
I think from the outside, you could see that way. But I can tell you, I've never been and served anyone that I left and feel like I wasted my time. Ever. I think one of the more eye-opening things I ever did was I went on a mission trip in Nicaragua and was able to help build houses there and be able to look those kids in the eyeballs and just see their gratitude of us being there with no expectation of even a thank you. I just wanted to go and serve. And it shifted so much in my life. I mean, it's not been that long ago. It's 5 years ago. And wow. I came back and just like, man, it's just like serving with no expectation of anything in return. It's never a waste of time. I mean, waste means there's nothing gained. And I have always gained, even being the one serving. And I've seen what's left after we've served. And so I know who got served gained. So there's no waste there.
Creation can't waste, consumption does.
Yeah.
Why did Joe Girard write thank you notes? Just came to my mind when you said the kids and the notes.
Yeah. I mean, because don't you think a lot of people would look at that act of writing a thank you note as being a waste of time?
I do. I do. Like, but why Joe? I mean, why did maybe the audience doesn't know who Joe Girard is? And I have a limited. Wasn't he a huge figure in the automotive space at one time?
It was, and but the idea was like that personal touch, of creating relationship. But it's expressing gratitude changes your thought processes. And I don't know if I've ever read his whole reasoning behind it. But if the idea of a personal handwritten note to express gratitude, like there's no waste in that,
Is it true that he was the number 1 salesman in the industry at one time?
At one time. And there's some, it's funny. It's a few years ago, there's a gentleman down in Florida named Ollie Rada who set the year sales record, like 1,500 and some odd cars. And it became disputed and debated. And I'm like, I don't care if it's 1,500 or 1,200 or 13. Like, who cares what the number is? More than 100 cars a month Like, let's give a guy some credit. Who cares what the actual number? Like, it's legitimate that it was more than 100. And the average dealership sells 100. So if you're one guy that can
Oh,
sell
wow.
100 cars a month, then like just give you your kudos, and who cares what the final number is, other than somebody wanting a title. And so, yeah, Joe Girard was a legend in this space. I think he ended up creating his own training platform and a lot of other things, but really what he taught was how to build relationship. So he
And
may have
how
been
did,
he may have been one of the first ones to acknowledge that it wasn't transactional. To be
really?
successful, you had to make it not transactional. You had to make it relationship.
Hmm. Um, how could one facilitate 100 customers in a month?
There's some strategy in it. I mean, one of the strategies that Ollie uses is he never lets someone purchase. He puts everybody in a lease. So there is a constant flow of customers back in the door, which is not a selfish thing. I mean, he's helping them get into a car at the most efficient rate possible with the newest technology, the newest safety features, and for the lowest out of pocket money per month cost. Um, and he's just gotten it down to a science that he knows exactly how many people he has coming in every single month based on their lease maturity. So it took him a while to do that, to build up that. But I think the fact that he cares about his customers and they know he cares about his customers, that they seldom question his suggestion as to what would be best for them. They truly trust his opinion. They truly trust his guidance. I, Yoda would have been an amazing car salesperson, because Yoda just guides you to what's best. His whole idea of leading Luke Skywalker to be a Jedi, well, he had to like lead him in that. Let's just be a guide in that process. He didn't tell Luke how to use the Force. He just told him about the Force, and I think the best salespeople are the ones who can create that relationship where they trust your guidance. You're there just to guide the process, but they trust your guidance because they know you're not. It's not about that one transaction. It's about the relationship you're trying to build with them over the course of their lifetime.
Hmm.
When I see,
Hmm.
I'll say when I see guys in our business, I mean, we've got Alton, his best month was 63. That's no slouch. Like that's really
Wow.
high. That's a really high achiever. And we've got, other people that are averaging, 25, 30, 35 a month. Like they're looking at the relationship over the course of that customer's lifetime. It's not about that one sale. That one sale is irrelevant. Um, they just have to make the first one. And then from then on, it's about developing that relationship and caring about
Someone
the customer.
that, someone that commits themselves to the craft, like they look at themselves as a profession, like from the first quarter or the first year, where are they in 10 years?
So, completely self-sustaining. They wouldn't need us other than the inventory. That's probably one of the hardest things to walk people through is because when they come into the business, the idea is I'm going to have to survive on what the dealership provides, which we're going to provide, but teaching them how to massage we provide into their own relationship building process that compounds on itself because the people become just the word raging fans. I think there's a book called Raging Fans that they develop a relationship where people just want them to succeed and they want to send them, buyers. I think someone who dedicated themselves to this craft in 10 years, if they just really didn't get self-absorbed or satisfied, 100 cars a month is possible for anybody. I don't think there's anybody that can't do it that just lives this business.
And what,
or doesn't get satisfied. I mean, there's a level of, depending on their history, I think sometimes if people came from poverty, there's a tendency to think if I reach a certain level of above poverty, then there's an arrival. And they sell themselves short of what they could possibly do. I see that happen a lot.
how do you break that?
I think one of the better ways to break it is just showing them what's possible. I mean, I mentioned Alton a while ago. I mean, he is a huge success story because of the lifestyle he came from into car sales. Was not a great lifestyle. It was. I mean, I don't know if he'd have stayed in that lifestyle, he probably wouldn't be living. And his wife pushed him to make that choice. So you got to do something different. And then he just poured into his craft. But I also see with him, even without him, there's this, hey, that's too different for me to do, even though I know it might lead to another level of success. I'm just not comfortable with that level of different. But I have guys that have been with our company for the same amount of time as Alton that are achieving a third of what he's achieving. And I constantly ask, what do you think's the difference? It's not that he's, he wakes up every morning, puts his pants on the same way you do. Like, what makes him different? And they have to come to a realization the only thing that makes him different is the desire. What he wants to achieve, and maybe for in Alton's case, it's more of a what does he want to prove because of where he came from. But if you can get beyond that and say, hey, what I want to prove, because that's a lot of times you're thinking about someone else's opinion of you, but you shift it to what do I want to achieve? So then it's about your opinion of you. Like, is there ever a cap on that? How do we not put a cap on what we think we can achieve? So I think that's, if you're leading and mentoring or coaching someone, like that's like, how do you take off their self-imposed ceiling, self-imposed cap? It's tough.
What are some of his most endearing qualities?
Alton, man, we talk about our core values, and we've said them on here before, but passion to serve, promotion of positivity, encouraging teamwork, adapting for growth, relentless. If I had to look at his and rank them one to five, not that there's one that's more important than the other, but he is absolutely relentless and has a passion to serve the customer. Like, he really wants to see them achieve whatever they came in to achieve. To the point that he can almost violate the positivity part of it, because sometimes he gets like, I don't want to use the word combative, but he can get like really pushing his sales management staff, which is awesome to see. It's not a negative. But he wants to serve so much that he can almost be seen as not being positive. But the flip side of it is he just wants to serve the customer. And you talk about teamwork. I know there was a month where he had already sold like 46 or 47 cars, which is, again, a big number in this space. And we were 2 or 3 away from hitting what we needed to hit with what the manufacturer wanted us to do. And he stayed like 2 hours after close to make sure we hit that number. Not because he was selling cars, but because he was trying to help other guys sell cars. And he's been that way I can't say he started that way, because, again, he came from an extremely self-protecting, self-preservation, self-serving cultural space. It was really bad. But over the course of time has understood that, man, I help others, it comes around. But I've seen him do it. It's amazing. So, I mean, if I had to say what's endearing about him is his relentless to get his job done. His passion to serve those that he's trying to affect their life that day, and the encouragement of teamwork because he wants everybody around him who has a work ethic to succeed. He has very low tolerance for laziness.
Who's someone else that comes to mind?
In our space,
Yeah.
in our buildings, I mean, another high achiever is a guy named Johnny Kent. Actually, Johnny Kent's only a year older than me. I think we went to high school together. He's been with us 13 years now. Alton's been with us. This is year 26. Um, but Johnny's been with us 13 years, and he is not really, but for all intents and purposes, the mayor of the town he lives in. Like everybody knows Johnny. I mean, the fact that he's about 6'4" and 300 pounds, you can't miss Johnny. He's a big old guy, but he's amazing. He's like driven to serve the customer, and has a low tolerance for what he can see to be laziness or unwillingness to help him serve the customer. So he can, in the same way, try to drive activity. But people love him, like his customers legitimately. We've got, I mean, same thing on the service side. We've got, I mean, Heath Cummings has been with us. This is year 27, I believe, for Heath. And there's nowhere that I can see him he doesn't exude who we're trying to be as an organization. It took me, the idea of the leader's best reward is when he creates a leader. And Heath had a tendency to try to own every problem rather than develop the people under him to solve that problem. And I'd say probably in the past 3 years, that's probably his biggest area of growth, is empowering the people that he's leading to solve the problem. And it's neat to see what's happened there. That's at Honda Service. Because he and I were talking the other day, and he said, Chris, I can't remember a time when we had a team that loved each other as much as our team loves each other. Like everybody wants everyone else to succeed and is willing to do whatever it takes to help another person do it. And I agreed with him. I mean, it's taken some cultural pruning, which was always a struggle for him because there were some high achievers that were bad culture fits. And that's the hard thing. But once that finally happened and he started replacing those people with high culture fits, and now you look around and like they are all happy almost all day, even when things are going crazy and it feels like the building's falling down around them because they're bumping their head on the ceiling of available time to wait on the customer. Like when you go over there, they're all smiling. Like, I can't think of a time that I've been over there in the past 6 or 7 months that I don't see smiles on everybody's faces. Like they're just smiling. And
Well,
I don't think that's always the case when people go to work. I think, you walk around sometimes you can just see, grumpy, but he has an amazing team, and it's just, empowering those under him to help them learn to solve problems. It's just elevated his thought processes in a way that's been really cool to see. But we've got, I mean, I could sit here all day and start naming through people. I mean, my whole leadership team's that way. I mean, Casey, Chris, Adam, they all want to see everyone they lead, be successful. And it's neat. It's really neat.
in closing, what would you want our listener to take away?
Culture matters. I mean, I know it seems cliche to be on this and say that, but, and when I say culture, it's like the community you serve and how you affect that community is an extension of the culture you've got inside the business. Because, you heard me go through those people and how they show up at work. Well, how we're trying to show up when we're in the community.
Hmm.
And just trying to learn to serve the community well. Well, it starts inside the buildings. But it really does. It really does matter. I mean, I don't want to, you and I shared that story with you earlier before we got on the call. I know we don't have time to share it again, but it was such a 2x4 to the back of my head yesterday of the full circle of things. You know, I mean, that was 7 years ago that I had that interaction with that little 10-year-old boy. And, you know, to see 7 years later, this full circle moment, and to know that if we hadn't started being in the community with our hands and our feet, that opportunity would not have been there. And the growth couldn't be there. So, yeah. Somebody might call it wasted time. It's just because they've never done it consistently over the course of time to be able to see the long-term fruit of it, because it's there. Sure.
If you're listening to this, please share this with a friend. Needs a wake-up call. Leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast. Follow Chris. We will see you next time. Culture Matters podcast.